Hi there, my name is Nicole Dayton, and today I'm going to be sharing my research about Italian soprano Francesca Cuzzoni, who lived during the Baroque period in the 18th century and led a leading and very progressive career at the Royal Academy of Music. First, I wanted to start with a bit of an overview about Francesca Cuzzoni. She was the first internationally acclaimed female singer to sing high tessitura roles during the Baroque period, which were historically sung by castrati. So, this presentation is going to overview how her historical role in music made a statement about how gender was perceived and interpreted at that time. But first, I wanted to give a little overview about who Francesca Cuzzoni was and where she came from. She was born in Parma, Italy, to musician parents, specifically her violinist father, who was a music teacher and a performer. And though she grew up in a middle class home, she was fortunate enough to train with a renowned singing teacher, Francesco Lanzi. And it was because of her relationship with this teacher that she was able to secure work because of her vocal prowess and her virtuosity as a singer. And in the 1720s, she went to the Royal Academy of Music, was invited by George Friedrich Handel, the composer, the infamous composer, um, and an impresario by the name of Heidegger to sing at the Royal Academy of Music. And the thesis of my project and paper is that her career there at the Royal Academy significantly influenced Handel's compositional trends, and it challenged societal expectations of gender through musical composition, through social class, and professional boundaries that already existed in the music industry, which was very male dominated at the time. It's important to note that Cuzzoni pioneered representation of the female voice in Baroque composition at a time when castrati singers dominated the musical sphere. Cuzzoni was known for her vocal prowess and technical excellence. She had a voice that was very captivating to hear. She had excellent agility and contributed a lot of musicality to anything that was written for her, anything that she sung. So she was widely loved by audiences, and this made her competitive with castrati singers who were dominating the performance sphere at the time. And this puts women on stage when during the Baroque period, women were often not on stage. It was looked down for them to be on stage, and it was an uncommon practice. She also originated the role of the pathetic heroine, which is a type of character, protagonist character in an opera that is highly emotional and connected to pathos and often associated with tragedy. This is an interesting commentary on gender because, in many ways, it was showing the limitations of how women were perceived in society on stage. Many of the characters in these operas didn't have full use of their agency. They were left to the they were victims of fate in a way, and many of their choices were dependent on what male characters were choosing for them. So that was a really interesting interpretation of gender depicted on stage in the context of society at the time. Additionally, there was still sexism happening in composition, And even though Cuzzoni and other female singers were having music written for them, the castrati roles often still had a more defined sense of heroism, more laments, and a greater sense of agency. And this quote from Susan Aspden captures all of this well, that the situation of female characters on stage mirrored the difficulties of the women portraying them. Cuzzoni's really successful career challenged gender roles and expectations during 18th century in Western Europe. As mentioned in her brief biography, Cuzzoni came from a middle-class family, and her upbringing had a lot of limited musical opportunity. She didn't have access to the greatest teachers, the greatest education, the greatest space. She was fortunate to study with an excellent teacher, but most middle class women at the time were not able to have those resources and were not really even pursuing music at the time because it wasn't socially acceptable by society. And as she rose in fame and became widely popular, she had a lot of political and social influence as a public figure, as a woman, which was very unique at the time because women were really not welcomed in the public sphere and not seen in the public sphere. And it was historically exciting for a woman to have that kind of influence. And as listed below the picture, in this biography, we learn that an article of her clothing, her brown silk dress trimmed with silver, it started a new fashion amongst the ladies of quality because they could not imitate her singing. So she had fashion influence, social influence, and power in a way that most women didn't. Unfortunately, at the end of her life, she did live in poverty. She lost a lot of money towards the end of her career and got caught up in gambling and a lot of debt, and was eventually imprisoned and was found selling things on essentially the side of the road, and died in poverty, which is an important note to make because really so much of her career was elevated by male dominance, writing music for her, creating a career path for her, but ultimately, when it came down to it, and as she got older and her voice started to change and she wasn't in the limelight of opera anymore, she went back to poverty and ended her life there. So that goes to show that even if women did have power and influence like Cuzzoni at the time, ultimately, did they really, if they were to end up back where they started? Cuzzoni had a large influence as a female music professional in a male-dominated industry. Like I mentioned, she had a lack of musical training opportunity, and in many ways that led to an unequal playing field for salary and opportunity. She was an advocate for her salary and actually made as much as the castrato that she sang by and with at the Royal Academy. But ultimately, there were still career challenges because of the male dominated society, and her career was in a lot of ways at the mercy of male discretion and what opportunities they would give her. Overall, Cuzzoni's imprint on music history played a large role in society's greater acceptance of female singers on stage, to have careers in music to match men, even castrati singers, in virtuosity, skill, and aptitude.